I don't know about you, but while I'm sitting here and watching the world fall down over this thing, I can't just dwell on the loss. Sure, people that I know and love have watched what was left of their retirement, their savings, virtually disappear, and others who never even got to save are left wondering how they'll take care of their families now that they've been deemed non-essential. But I can't shelter in place and brood over these depressing things. So I thought that I would take a look at some of those who are winning while the rest of us lose. Speaking of depression, the U.S. Army recently launched the 2020 edition of their Shark Tank-style competition, X-Tech Search, and some of the firms competing are working on things to help with our current lockdown state. The NeuroFlow app didn't win a prize because apparently they already have extensive financing from other sources, but they are looking to participate in our current situation. The app monitors the user's emotional state through a series of interactive features designed with the same psychological tricks as online games to keep you engaged and clicking. The back end of the software provides reports to healthcare providers, to employers, and commanders anonymously for monitoring. According to BreakingDefense.com, the goal is to roll out an Army version to an operational unit in 2021. That probably means that they could use an influx of data right now. So nice of them to want to help the stressed out masses now that everyone's been whipped up in a frenzy. Step right up, feed the machine. And we can't forget BetterHelp. Remember how all of the YouTube stars were pushing that, normalizing telling your problems to a machine? And there's other chatbots just waiting to listen to you. Like I just talked about recently with my friend Jeff C., for so long there's been a desire by some to build a virtual world to someday upload their consciousness into somehow. Thing is, they don't want to be alone. They want you and me, the animals, how buildings and machinery function, everything, the whole world. Think about it. In a 2010 Pharma Times article, Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg was quoted as saying that the World Health Organization, in cooperation with some big pharmaceutical companies and their scientists, redefined pandemics, removing the statement that an enormous amount of people have contracted the illness or died from its existing definition, and replacing it by stating simply that there has to be a virus spreading beyond borders and to which people have no immunity. Of course, if we look at the paper, What is a Pandemic, with the now rather famous Anthony Fauci credited as one of the authors, not only do they discuss how the term pandemic has changed over the years, but they also say that immunity is a relative concept that does not necessarily imply full protection from infection. So who sets the standard? And Dr. Wodarg is out there now, too, trying to help people understand the nature of viruses. If you care about what's happening to us all right now, I suggest you take 10 minutes and consider what he's saying. And in the June 8th, 2009 article titled, Is This a Pandemic? Define Pandemic. We read that for years, the World Health Organization's website defined an influenza pandemic as causing enormous numbers of deaths or illness. But the agency pulled the definition, apologizing for causing confusion and anxiety. They'd been warning out in the world about a potential pandemic of avian flu, and then came the swine flu. They said that upset the WHO's assumptions that most people have the same understanding of the word pandemic. That pandemic turns out to be another example of imprecise vocabulary that doctors use every day, assuming that everyone understands their meaning. It goes on to say that even the indexes of most major medical textbooks do not list pandemic, even one in which Dr. Fauci was the main editor. In an interview, Dr. Fauci said, "It's a mistake, and I'm surprised it's not there because it should have been." Once again, it's all about the definition being used. Pandemic means whatever they say it means, apparently, and whatever suits the plans at the time. If it's not all right to falsely shout fire in a crowded theater, why is it all right to shout pandemic from every news outlet and government mouthpiece when the definition can't even be agreed upon by the experts in the field? And when it's known that the public doesn't even know what they mean? What will harm more people in the end, I wonder? This declared pandemic that has brought the world's economies to a halt and thrown much of the population into a panic, not only over the threat of a disease, but fears and concerns over the loss of liberties and the destruction of people's way of life. The fear is bad for you, and they know it. Think of how many people they're hurting because they changed a definition to accommodate their pals. Remember that government in this country is famous for the revolving door with Big Everything, including Big Pharma, who gets all kinds of taxpayer dollars thrown at them because of that definition. We are being asked to put our faith in these global powers and just believe and follow their orders. But what if their priorities vastly differ from those who just want to live and let others live, to deal with situations as we ourselves see fit? It makes me think about who benefits from this chaos. In these times of fear, all manner of rules can be relaxed, likely never to return to normal, especially with the ease and convenience of these digital technologies and the tracking data. On March 18th, it was announced that covered healthcare providers may now use Apple FaceTime, Facebook Messenger video chat, Google Hangouts chat, Skype, and others to provide telehealth to the masses during this panic without any fear of HIPAA. How convenient. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, was behind the creation of DNA and RNA vaccines, funding early research and development by Moderna, Inc. and others. In 2018, DARPA launched the Pandemic Prevention Platform that seeks to develop a scalable, adaptable, rapid response platform capable of producing relevant numbers of doses against any known or previously unknown infectious threat within 60 days of identification of such threat. They say the idea is to use that RNA that they've been investing so heavily in as a vaccine modality and just encode the antibody sequence on the RNA and to deliver the RNA directly into your muscle cells, that the human body would replace the bioreactors. And we should not only look at the vaccine technologies. There's also companies like Nanovirusides, which we covered in another video. They're taking their biological nanomachines into human trials, and they say they've got a product ready to try against this novel coronavirus. And they don't even need to inject you to get these nanomachines inside of you. Whenever I think about the nanobots they've got such plans for, how they say they can even be taken orally, and I think of companies like Just talking about their computational platforms to tailor their techno-foods to the needs of the big multinational food conglomerates, how they can have specific micronutrient profiles. They even list fluoride, which I find interesting. It might seem outrageous to some who are just seeing this for the first time, but I look at these technologies, at this laboratory food that we never need to know what all is in there. They don't even legally have to tell us now what all is in the food we eat. There's so many loopholes. And I think of the Bill Gates-backed Particles for Humanity with their triple and quadruple fortified micronutrients and their encapsulated vaccines for staged deployment, their vaccine tracking systems. Everything goes together so well and plays such a part in this hostile takeover of our bodies. They're saying here in this article that wild animals belong in the wild. A permanent ban on wildlife trade by China and the rest of the world is the only solution, keeping wild animals wild. So watch it, hunters. They've been pushing that deer are infected for years. It's a slippery slope when the countries of the world start falling in line like dominoes, one after another, as designed and planned for. Any of you people out there in the military and law enforcement, if you like to hunt or you might like to, I wouldn't go along with their pushing. This is when we choose which side of history we want to be on. And antibiotic resistance is another ticking time bomb, shouts the wildlife NGOs. Of course, we'll have their frankenfoods. It's biotechnology for the win over and over in this, really. Josh Tetrick of the brand Just is hoping that when the world emerges from this health crisis, that a commitment to building a more sustainable food system will prevail. We've looked at their idea of sustainable foods. Remade nature all the way, nothing left behind. Tetrick wants to prevent this sort of thing from happening ever again. Fortunately, he just so happens to have a plan, and he's been licensing their technologies around the world. And Just isn't the only Silicon Valley type startup company that decided they needed to remake food as we know it, and they're using this crisis to change the food system. This COVID-19 thing is just perfect for cementing so much of the framework for the bioeconomy. It's been a long time in the works, changes here and there, but this might be the opportunity that really sets in motion the trillion-dollar shift to the brave new world. Oh yeah, and this works for rolling out the universal basic income. They've been working on that for so long, and now President Trump is talking about relief money incoming if the economy tanks over the closing of everything. And since they've got the whole plan already worked out, we're saved, kinda. Plus, think of the money that is going to be saved by local governments and public school systems shifting online instead of in the real. With how my town has been reportedly hemorrhaging money, I could see it being sold to the people as an unanticipated blessing, really. And you know, so many businesses and homes have internet-connected security cameras installed, so that should be really helpful with making sure people are where they're supposed to be and not where they aren't wanted. Remember, we've shown how celebrities, politicians, those visible and influential people are being used to be the spokespeople and lead the masses wherever they're supposed to go. Don't you find it curious how so many of these influencers have come out as testing positive and are instructing their flock with what to do, how to behave, to listen to the authorities? But I don't know anyone who's tested positive for this virus, and as I've been out and talking to strangers at every opportunity, I haven't met anyone who knows anyone. And it's all kind of curious, don't you think? Now this is some speculation, but if we come out of this all right and life goes back to a new normal, but if 5G is able to suddenly be ready to go and they turn it on, it could be that the shutdown was just a perfect opportunity to set up their infrastructure.
We put in small cells, which are connected by fiber. Those are places where the wireless carriers are broadcasting their spectrum, and they're hidden so well, I don't think anybody would even notice. We've hidden them in things like lights and other existing infrastructure. So it didn't change the aesthetic of Discovering Green, but it did bring a service to the community.
And that's part of the future, you think, in terms of making that happen aesthetically?
Absolutely.
This sort of endeavor requires a whole lot of antennas, from what I understand. Maybe they're counting on us being too occupied with Netflix and video games to watch what's happening outside. I hear there's lots of freebies flying around for those types of things these days. You know, some people call it entertainment, but it's really your mind control. For weeks in my city, they've been stringing up rolls of Corning cable. I've seen them out and about, and they did it right in front of my house. There is a relatively small group of people on this planet that have motives that are completely contrary to the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the rest of us. They have their reasons, and I imagine that these things that they're doing that are bad for us are good for them and theirs, and they feel that it's the right thing for them to do. We little people, you know, the majority, we need to get it through our heads that these people have plans, and the technological-based nightmare that they're bringing out as a result of this pandemic is required to meet their goals. Things don't need to be like this. It's just a choice, and we all have to make it. If we make the right choice, it could really be the end of the world as we know it, but in a good way. Even the ambitions of the adversaries of the masses are stunted by this world and by their intentions to bring humanity into the hive as docile drones. No one can say what is locked up inside of us, but keeping the boot on humanity and the few deciding for the many which way the world is going, keeping so many in the dark and dumbed down, there's so much wasted potential. I just think that there's a better way for all of us going forward. And we could change the world today. This is the chance that the people of planet Earth have been waiting for, to throw down these chains that bind us. Let's take a cue from the message that we're being force-fed, but shift it to another infection. Take a 2-week quarantine from all of your devices. Give yourself a chance to see the world, what's really going on around you, and not through the lens of the technology companies. Talk to people. Consider where your assumptions come from and allow that people will disagree with you and you will disagree with them, and that's okay. But try to talk about real things rather than the topics and events broadcast through your devices. We need a reset, but not the one that they've got in store. And there doesn't have to be any violence. We need to take back our lives and seriously consider the direction the world is heading. Please, before you unplug, share this video, re-upload it anywhere that you can. The sources are linked below. Thank you for listening.